Quinny? Get down. Welcome back to Swordman Josh Gaming on this Christmas day of 2019. And I have a Quinny who needs to get down. I wanted to do a deck tech. This is actually a deck that I kind of created for Christmas. It was also kind of Absolute Cactus did a deck also, and he went very traditional. And I found a combo way and kind of homebrewed something different. Didn't really see anything like this. So the commander is Talrand Sky Summoner. And I say I even did this for Christmas because I even used the Christmas art sleeves from Dragon Shield. I love these art sleeves for Christmas this year with little kitty and the dragon. And then if you look closely, you have a dwarf giving an elf a present, which is just absolutely classic. But gonna go over this deck. This is instead of playing a traditional Talrand just cantrip and try to control with counterspell deck, this is Talrand Combo. So there are some cards in here that you would be very familiar with in a traditional Talrand deck from what I saw from EDH rec and stuff like that. But I've taken this in a twist, and it seems pretty powerful, especially in a pod. I can't wait to play it some more. But in case you didn't know what Talrand was, it's 2 blue, 2 colorless. He's kind of the blue poster child for commander. A lot of people start with this as their starting commander, but he's a 2/2, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you create a 2/2 blue drake creature token with flying. Now, a lot of Talrand decks, Talrand will be the only creature in your deck, or you're going to play Wizard Tribal, or you're going to play Merfolk Tribal because he is a Merfolk Wizard. What I did was twisted it a little bit, and you'll see what I did. I wanted to find a way to abuse Talrand the best that I could, and here's what I came up with. So we'll start with. So remember, it's Talrand Combo. So I guess we'll start with what you traditionally see in a Talrand deck. A lot of the cantrip cards, a lot of the bounce cards. We'll go through those quickly. We'll go through the few counter spells suite that we're running to protect our combos, and we'll go from there. Some of you might guess what this is already because one of my pet cards is sitting right here on top. It's Altar of the Brood. If you're familiar with what that does, you could probably guess that my Talrand deck runs at least infinite mill, which it does. But there are some other combos in here. So we'll go through these first. We have Jataxian Probe, 0. It's a Phyrexian mana, so you can either pay a blue or 2 colorless. You get to look at target player's hand and draw a card. Great for being able to look at somebody's hand, especially if you're playing against just one other blue player. Make sure that you're clear to combo off. Of course, sorcery, so you're going to make a 2/2 Drake. So 0 mana, make a 2/2 Drake, draw a card. Not bad, it replaces itself. Next, we have Whispers of the Muse. See if I can make some room here. My desk is a mess from brewing and playing video games today. Next is Whispers of the Muse. Great card. Great early game as a cantrip. Great late game just to buy it back to keep making drakes if you need to. So it's a blue to draw a card at instant speed, but it also has a 5 mana buyback. So if you dump 6 mana into it, you draw a card, and then you can recast it again if you want to. We have Peak, Jataxian Probe's little brother. A lot of people don't run Peak. We've seen Peak on my channel multiple times now. You guys know that I like Peak. It replaces itself. It's look at target player's hand and draw a card at instant speed. Peak's been one of my pet cards for blue. We have Illusion of Choice. This top part won't come into play a lot. It's choose how each player votes this turn. But you always get to draw the card. The first one, you don't have to wait for somebody to play a vote card for you to play this card. It's literally a cantrip that sometimes that top section will come into play. So I put it in here. We have the good old-fashioned Opt, scry 1, draw a card. We have Portent, which is look at the top 3 cards of target player's library, which is very good. Then either shuffle that library, put those 3 cards on top of the library in any order, and draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So it's not an immediate card draw. But the nice thing about this is it's look at the top 3 cards of target player's library. So you can still cast this, get a Drake. Let's say somebody demonic tutored, or not demonic tutored, enlightened tutor or something like that, and they did it at the wrong time because they're not a very good Magic player. All of a sudden, or I'm trying to think of one of the tutors that would play at sorcery speed, and then let's say that they couldn't draw the card, and I'm drawing a blank on what they are. I'm sure like maybe it's Diabolic puts it on top, or Vampiric, or one of them. I know there's a black tutor that puts it on top of your library, and it's at sorcery speed. So if they didn't have any way to draw that card, Portent can then all of a sudden on your turn, since it's sorcery, shuffle that card away for them again, and then they've wasted a spell and you still get a Drake. We have Obsessive Search. It's just 1 blue to draw a card, but for madness, if somebody makes you discard it, you can still play it, pay a blue, and draw a card. Reach Through the Mist, blue, draw a card. Quicken. The next sorcery card you cast this turn can cast as though it had flash and draw a card. So Quicken and Portent together can actually stop somebody from being able to tutor, put it on top of their library, and then be able to draw that card. You can interrupt that if you want to. So it's good interaction. It also works with quite a few other things as well. We have Visions of Beyond. Like I said, it is a mill deck, so draw a card for 1 blue. Great. However, if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you get to draw 3 cards. We're going to fill graveyards pretty fast, so hopefully we get 3 for 1 blue. The traditional Brainstorm that everybody knows about. Thought Scour, another way to interact with those people who are playing sorcery speed tutors. So target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard and you draw a card. Great interaction. Sleight of Hand, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and 1 on the bottom. Mystical Tutor, so that way we can tutor up our own stuff. And probably one of my favorites that's done a lot of work is Mystic Speculation. So it's 1 blue with only a 2 mana buyback, so it's cheap, especially with Talrand on the board. You can make a lot of Drakes quick with this, but it's just scry 3. There's no draw to it, which is the reason I put it at the bottom of this list. It doesn't replace itself, but it is still one of the best cards for making Drakes just rapidly and quickly. If you've run out of steam, you've run out of all of your cantrip cards, this one will just pump them out for you. So that's actually our 1-drop slot, and our 0-drop technically. So next thing I'm going to do is go over our 2-drop slot. Again, this is a lot of stuff that you'd see in a traditional Talrand deck. So there probably won't be too many surprises here. The first one is Inaction Injunction. This is one that a lot of people may not know about, but it's at sorcery speed. It's a blue and a colorless to draw a card, but it has this special ability of detaining target creature an opponent controls. Just that one hesitation turn can sometimes be what can either make it so you win or lose a game. Detaining a creature, if you don't know what that it is, it means that until your next turn, the creature that you're detaining can't attack, block, or activate abilities. So I've used this against Eldrazi before. I've used it against commanders before, so they can't use their abilities when they're not summoning sick anymore. So it's a great little card, and it's still basically, it's not a full cantrip because these are all 2 costs, but it's close enough. The next we have for 2, we have Scour All Possibilities, which is scry 2, then draw a card, but it has flashback for 5. Then we have Radical Idea, which is draw a card, but it also has Jumpstart. So you can discard a card from your hand and then pay the casting cost again, and then draw another card. Great for getting rid of useless islands. We have Impulse. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library, and then shuffle your library afterwards. This I don't understand. Sorry, my cat's having a conniption. But go, Quinny. Jesus Christ, Quinn. What you got? Get your claws out. Get your claws out. Emma, come here. Ugh, never mind. Sorry, my cat was completely stuck and has ripped a huge hole into my gaming chair. I'm sure Impulse has been erratated to either just shuffle your library or has been erratated to put them on the library and then that bottom text has been taken off. I'm not sure which. I'll have to look it up. Sorry for the interruption. We have Anticipate. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. So card selection and draw. We have See Beyond. Draw 2 cards, then shuffle a card from your hand back into your library. We have a way of cheating creatures out. So this is a great way of getting one of our creatures out of our hand and back into our library. Bounce spells. Blink of an eye. Blue and a colorless. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If it was kicked, draw a card. Identical to Blink of the Eye is Into the Royal. Does exactly the same thing. We have good old Cyclonic Rift, which is a blue staple card. I pulled this out of my Slivers deck, actually, because, quite frankly, this deck's more fun. We have Boomerang. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. So this is one of the few ways that we can bounce a land that's being troublesome. We have Disperse. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways to bounce cards. We have Merchant Scroll. Of course, we're going to run Merchant Scroll. And then we're running Dramatic Reversal. So everybody knows that we're also going to have Isochron Scepter. Of course, we know this, so no surprise when we get to it. But Dramatic Reversal, Isochron Scepter is pretty much a staple in a lot of blue decks, as long as you're running enough mana rocks for it. But untap all non-land permanents you control. With the Isochron Scepter, if you're running enough mana rocks, then you can infinitely make mana. That's our 2-drop. Going to go into the few cards that we have that are not in the 1 and 2 drops that are kind of, well, we'll go into these and then these highs. So these are mostly 3 and 4 drops. So the first one we're running is Leadership Vacuum. Target player returns each commander they control from the battlefield to the command zone and draw a card. We're running this in case Talrand gets stolen. We don't have a lot of ways besides countering things that come out. So if our commander dies, or if our commander gets stolen, this is one of the few ways we have of getting him back. Now, we don't have to have our commander on the field to combo out. We do have combo lines that do not require our commander. He just makes a lot of our combo lines easier and easier to protect also. So we're also running Blue Sun Zenith. Target player draws X card, shuffle Blue Sun Zenith into its owner's library. This allows us with infinite mana to make somebody draw out their library and then lose because they can't draw anymore. We are not running Lab Man or Jace Memories, so we're not lab manning. This is not a lab man deck, but it does allow us to dig as far as we want to in our library. If we're making infinite mana, we can count the number of cards in our library, draw those cards, shuffle Blue Sun Zenith, and then we'll have a cantrip to draw it, play it for infinite mana, make somebody else draw out their library, and then do that 2 more times. So Blue Sun Zenith, even though we aren't playing Lab Man, it shuffles back into our library, so it becomes the only card in our library with infinite mana. We can make everybody infinitely draw their libraries. We have Polymorph's Jest. It's an instant, of course. Until end of turn, each creature target player controls loses all abilities and becomes a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1. Our flyers are only 2/2s. If we end up against a wall, this is a great way to break that down so we can get in. And it's also a great defensive function. If somebody attacks in with a bunch of a Blightsteel Colossus or any other number of large things, this allows us to just cut them all down to size. We're running Chemister's Insight. It's 3 and a blue to draw 2 cards. Again, we're drawing one card per 2 mana, so but it also has Jumpstart. We have Deep Analysis. Again, 4 mana, draw 2 cards with a flashback for blue and a colorless and pay 3 life. We are running Washout. We are not running the Painter's Servant in here. That's just cheesy and a trashy way to win. But we are running Washout because in the right situation, this can work just as well as a Cyclonic Rift. It may not get all of their mana rocks, but it can certainly bring up an entire board from somebody. And then we are running Treasure Cruise. We don't have a lot of ways of bringing instants and sorceries back from our graveyard unless they have flashbacks, so feel free to delve them away and draw cards with Treasure Cruise. And then the last of our spell suite, except for counter spells, and then we'll start getting into where we're at. We're running Increasing Confusion. So it's a blue and X. Target player puts the top X cards of their library into their graveyard. However, it has a flashback for blue and X also. Same exact casting cost for the flashback. But if you're paying this for its flashback cost, then they're putting twice that many cards in their graveyard. So if you play this for blue and 10, they're going to mill 10. But if you're playing it for blue and 10 out of your graveyard, then they're going to be milling 20 cards. Here's a fun one, Traumatize. Target players puts the top half of their library rounded down into their graveyard. Mills people out really quick. And then, of course, we saw Mystical Tutor. We know we're running Isochron Scepter. We have Beacon of Tomorrow. If we have enough mana and we put a Mystical Tutor on an Isochron Scepter, we can then infinitely pull up Beacon of Tomorrow and we can make infinite turns. So it's one of the reasons it's in here. It's also just a great way of being able to have another card in your library to shuffle up. So that's actually our entire spell suite minus our protection. So our protection suite is Wizard's Retort. Talrand is a wizard, so it's at counterspell cost. We have Force of Negation, Foil, because it allows us to, almost all of our spells in here, or at least, let's see, we have 3 of them, are 0 mana, or equivalent 0 mana casting cost counter spells. So that way we can try to combo off earlier and protect ourselves. So Force of Negation, obviously, especially if we try to do this on our opponent's turn, which is difficult to do but not impossible. We have Foil, and we have Pact of Negation. The way we can do this on our opponent's turn is getting lucky with our creature drop. So we have Wizard's Retort. We have Arcane Denial, which is also card draw and a counterspell. Good old-fashioned counterspell, and Flusterstorm. This is the extent of our counterspell suite in the library, but with as many cards as we can draw, we should have one of these in our hand at any given time. So we don't need to run a million counterspells in this particular deck. So let's get into the creatures, and then we'll get into the artifacts. And then I'll show some of the combos. So our first creature is Cloud of Fairies. This is one of our ways to be able to generate infinite triggers. Our next is a mill card, which is Sage's Road Denizen. And it's whenever another blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, target player puts the top card of his or 2 cards of his or her library into his graveyard. Obviously, if we can infinitely flicker Cloud of Fairies, we have infinite number of blue creatures entering the battlefield. If you guys are good at Magic, you can see where we're going to go with this. Tribute Mage allows us to go get an artifact of converted mana cost 2. This allows us to go get our Isochron Scepter or a couple of our other artifacts, which I'll show you in a second. Spellseeker allows us to go get a instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 2. So if we have both of these, we can go get our Dramatic Reversal and our Isochron Scepter and put them together, and hopefully we have infinite mana. Now, I said we could possibly cheat this out on an opponent's turn, and that's where the Force of Negation, we don't have to pay the casting cost to be able to go infinite. And that's with Jalira. Jalira, Master Polymorphist. So it's blue and 3 for a 2/2, so she's squishy. However, a blue and 2 colorless, sacrifice another creature. We're always going to sacrifice a Drake from Talrand. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-legendary creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. We are going to, so, not legendary, not legendary, not legendary, not legendary, obviously legendary. We're playing Arcanist the Omnipotent for a card draw engine. It's legendary, so if we find this, we skip it. We have Great Whale, which is like Cloud of Fairies. This is a reserve list card, so you could replace this with Peregrine Drake if you wanted to. Be just not... Peregrine Drake would be more squishy and be a flyer, but when Great Whale comes into play, untap up to 7 lands. Peregrine Drake is 5 lands, and I believe it's a 2/2 flyer. This is a 5/5 ground pounder. We have Tidespout Tyrant. Whenever you cast a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. So if we cheat him out early, we can control the entire game with casting the number of spells we do per turn. And then, of course, here's where one of our combos comes in. Deadeye Navigator. If we manage to have a Cloud of Fairies or a Great Whale on board, and we pull a Deadeye Navigator, we soul bond them together. And then we can, if we have like a Sage's Row Denizen or an Altar of the Brood on the battlefield, then on an opponent's turn, because we can use Jalira's ability at instant speed, then we can infinitely flicker either Altar of the Brood or infinitely flicker Cloud of Fairies or Great Whale to be able to infinitely mill everybody out. And we are running one Planeswalker, which is, it's back here in the creatures. It's Jace's Memory Adept. It's card draw a card, target player puts the top card of their library in their graveyard, or the 0 mana, the 0/1 is target player puts the top 10 cards of their library in their graveyard, so it can do work quick. And then the -7 is any number of target players each draw 20 cards. But like I said, we're sitting here with one combo. An easy combo to set up is just something like this. Because the Cloud of Fairies, every single time it comes in, is going to untap 2 lands. Deadeye Navigator takes 2 lands to be able to flicker, so we have infinite flickers, and Sage's Row will infinitely mill somebody out. We can also do it with Altar of the Brood. So yeah, that's one easy combo. There's some other combos lines in here also. I'll see if I can't talk about them. Obviously I talked about the Blue Sun Zenith drawing our library, then having everybody else draw theirs, because we're going to go into our artifact suite. So first is Altar of the Brood, one of my pet cards. You know it, you love it. Whenever another permanent enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. Great way to mill somebody out. We are running Altar of Dementia. We have the ability of making an infinite number of Drakes also, because with Dramatic Reversal on Isochron Scepter with Mana Rocks, it means that we've cast Dramatic Reversal every single time. It's as if we've cast this blue spell. So we make infinite Drakes with Altar of Dementia out, then all of a sudden we have infinite power to infinitely mill everybody. We're also, so Dramatic Reversal, Isochron Scepter, Talrand, Altar of the Brood is infinite mill. You can replace Altar of the Brood with Sage's Row Denizen as infinite mill. You can also replace either one of those with Altar of Dementia, which is infinite mill. Now, while we're waiting to set up our combos, we are running Mind Crank. Whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from the top of their library into their graveyard. We're going to make Drakes fast. We don't care really if our Drakes die. So we're just going to keep swinging in unless somebody is working out of their graveyard, and then we'll probably wait for that person until we can infinitely mill them or have them infinitely draw. But with this setup, we mill a ton. So the problem that we're going to run into is running out of spells. Well, we're running an Elixir of Immortality. So that way we can recycle. We're not running any of the Eldrazi to recycle our library. We're running Elixir of Immortality, and that's all we're running. It's 1 colorless, 2 colorless, tap it, you gain 5 life, shuffle Elixir of Immortality and your graveyard into your library. This is our only way of getting all of our spells back. We have no way of protecting this except for with counter spells and 1 mana rock, and there's one reason why this mana rock is in here. We are running Vessels of Endless Rest as a mana rock. When Vessels of Endless Rest enters the battlefield, put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. And then it's just tapped to add 1 mana of any color. It's not the greatest ratio because it's 3 mana for 1 colorless, but we are running it specifically to protect our Elixir of Immortality, and that's the only reason that we're running this mana rock over some of the other ones. Our other mana rocks, we're running Gilded Lotus, 5 mana, tap it, add 3 mana of any 1 color of your choice. We're running Mana Vault. We're running Arcane Signet, Soul Ring. That's what we're running in the way of our mana rocks. So we're not running a ton of mana rocks. Actually, we're only running 5 of them, but with the amount of cards that we draw, we should be able to find these fairly easily. Also with our Seeker, we can get out the Altar, we can get out the Mind Crank, we can get out the Arcane Signet, and we can also get out the Isochron Scepter. And then the last card we're running is Bident of Thassa. So 2 blue, 2 colorless. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Again, we're going to have tons of drakes. We're just going to swing it. The next part of this is a blue and a colorless. Tap it. Creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. Great if we have Polymorphor's Jest in our hand. Also great if we have somebody, they don't have to attack us. They just have to attack. If they don't attack us, that's great. If we use this on somebody, we can then go in. Let's say we have Mind Crank held up in our hand. We cast it, then we swing in with our drakes, and we mill that person for a lot. So that's our artifact suite. So we've gone through everything except for the land base, and then I've talked about quite a few of the combos. There's some other ones in here. I don't want to give them all out. I'm going to put the deck list in the comments to my tapped out account. So let's go through the land base. We are running 1 very shiny Reliquary Tower. This is the only card that we are running that allows us to have an infinite hand size. A lot of the other Talrand decks you see will run Thought Vessel, or it will run Spellbook, or it will run any other number of things that make it so you have an infinite hand size. We're not too worried about that. And then I don't know why those decks run it anyways, because we're running a cantrip. Well, we're running a cantrip deck, not a counterspell deck. We're running Temple of the False Gods, just to produce some more mana. We are running Ancient Tomb, so we can try to land a turn 2 Talrand is the reason that we're running this. Lonely Sandbar is just a cycle land. We are also running the other cycle land with Desert of the Mindful. We are running Mystic Sanctuary, one of the few ways we have of getting an instant or sorcery back on top of our library. So if we get something milled out, like our Dramatic Reversal gets milled out, or we have to use it early, or we want to get our Mystic Speculation back so that way we can make a lot more drakes, this is one of our few ways, it's actually our only way of getting it back besides shuffling everything back together. And then we are also running Halimar Depths because we're running mono blue. Why not? When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library and put them back in any order. So it's a pseudo-ish brainstorm. And then we're running 26 islands. So 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 land, which may seem light, but we're drawing enough cards, it doesn't matter. 33 land, 5 mana rocks. It ends up being a very fun, a pretty competitive deck as long as you're not playing like EDH. And I like it a lot. I'm actually really surprised how much I like it. And then, of course, I love the sleeves that I put it in.